I'm Kim Ward. This session is on interactive employee development, or we might say training and working with people on the job. Let's start with a simple definition: interaction, a mutual or reciprocal action or influence. This is a common platform for employee mentoring, coaching, and development. I think if you think about it, you'll realize that some of the best employee development that occurs with your employees occurs when you're working with them on the job. So here's a concept, something to maybe motivate us to spend a little more time with employees on the job. Just remember this: any management activity that puts you in closer proximity to your staff will commonly drive improved performance. There are two topics in this section. One is one-on-one meetings, and one is actually on-the-job training or working side by side with employees. Let's start with talk about how do we facilitate a powerful one-on-one meeting. You know, I know a lot of managers do one-on-ones, but I'm not sure that they conduct them as powerfully as they possibly could. I say that because when I view them through the window with their employee, I see the manager talking a lot and I see the employee talking very little. I mean, if we really stop and think about it, a one-on-one meeting, whose meeting is that supposed to be? I think we can all agree it's supposed to be the employees' meeting. So why is the manager doing all the talking? Probably the best place to start, if we want to, going forward, conduct more powerful or facilitate more powerful one-on-one meetings. Let's start with the expected or hopeful outcomes. First, the meeting should create an atmosphere of development and strategizing for the employee, their development, and their work improvement. It should also enhance both the manager and employee skills in a number of areas. It should create an open dialogue between the manager and employee, a real conversation about things that are important to both of them. It should improve the employee's abilities in their work process. And as a result of this one-on-one meeting, it should focus both the manager and the employee on the future. It means that these meetings, in my mind, should probably contain more topics than commonly occur in many of the one-on-one meetings I've seen managers have in the past. There's a couple of tools that I'm going to refer you to as we move through this section. One is the one-on-one success strategy worksheet, and obviously that's in your toolkit as well as on your USB or thumb drive, and the one-on-one performance meeting guide, which is a very detailed explanation of the things I'm going to share with you in the next few minutes. If you take a look at page 139, you have a landscape document, a copy, if you will, of one of those tools. This is a success strategy session, one-on-one preparation worksheet. Now you'll notice that it's split into two parts. You have manager, supervisor questions and preparation on the left-hand side. You have employee questions and preparations on the right-hand side. The way this mechanism is intended to work, prior to the session, you would give a copy, a blank copy, to the employee. And you might say to them, listen, I'd like you to prepare for our one-on-one meeting in a few days, maybe next Tuesday at 10 a.m. They go away and they answer the questions on the right-hand side. Now notice those questions are in three areas. Work review, meaning what have they been doing since our last meeting and how has that gone? Personal development. What have they been working on for their own development and improvement, their own personal developmental plan? And then going forward, what is their plan after the meeting? What are their plans going forward before we meet with them again next time? Now, on the left-hand side of the page, the manager has their questions, and these are really a reflection of the employee's questions, but in the context of a manager. So if you compare those questions on the left and right, you'll see they're both preparing in the same three areas, but the manager is preparing to review the work of the employee, obviously then to discuss employee development. And then of course, going forward, what does the employee have planned after the session or after the meeting? If both the manager and the employee are prepared for the meeting, then it should be a simple matter of, at some point, the manager saying, okay, let's do a work review. What's been happening in the last week or 2 weeks since we had the last meeting? And the employee should then look at their notes, look at their preparation, and then offer that information. Now, the manager can ask questions. I mean, this should be a conversational exchange. So the manager can ask questions, can dig deeper, can make references or conduct brainstorming, share with them information that they think might be useful. But the bottom line is, once again, it's supposed to be the employee's meeting. So let's allow the employee, once the employee has finished their work review, then all the manager has to ask or say is, okay, where are we at with your personal development? The employee talks, the manager coaches, mentors, shares information. Once that's completed, then, okay, so what do you have planned for next week? If both parties are well prepared, the meeting should go much more smoothly. We should be able to produce more frequently the outcomes we hope to produce in a meeting like this. And frankly, the employee begins to take more responsibility for the meeting, and as a result, generally produce better outcomes. Now, if you take a look in your workbook, starting on page 140, you'll find we've given you detailed instructions for conducting and even explaining to employees these meetings. It starts with the one-on-one meeting guide, which is a basic explanation of what are we hoping to accomplish and how are we going to accomplish those things inside this meeting. It also talks about doing a work review. It also talks about the employee development and how to review that. And it also discusses what kind of plans or communication do we need about their plans from the employee should we look for going forward. It also contains information for the manager how to prepare for this meeting. It also talks about the employee or the producer preparation for the meeting. And then in case we need it, if you look on page 144, you'll also find a picture that explains it. You know, one-on-one meetings aren't supposed to be difficult. And frankly, they shouldn't take a long time and they shouldn't be so hard for the manager to conduct. If we use a tool like this and we get the employee proactively prepared, then frankly, it can go back to being the employee meeting and we can hold a much easier and much more productive one-on-one. Okay. Let's switch topics. Let's talk about working with employees side by side, working with team members on the job. You know, in reality, players play and coaches coach. Well, that's true most of the time, unless you happen to be a minor league hockey team in Canada. Players play and coaches coach. What you're looking at on the screen is a simple representation of a 6-month common 6-month ramp-up period for employees. Obviously, when you hire someone new or bring somebody new to the team, it frequently takes a lot of time with them on the job in order to get them ramped up, as the saying goes, over whatever period of time you think is a reasonable ramp-up time. But in the beginning, the manager is having to show or do a lot of the work that we're going to expect the employee to be responsible for as time goes by. Now, over time, the coach should be able to coach more and play less, and the player should be able to play more over time. Normal or common ramp-up time in most industries, about 6 months. So if we want to get the best result, you know, there are things we can do when we're working with people on the job that will slow down their development, and there are things we can do that will speed it up dramatically. I just want to take a few minutes and talk about what kind of things can we do that will speed up and improve and even motivate employees and their work on the job. Let's start with number 1, establish activity standards. You know, I believe that every employee wants to know and should know what your expectations of them every day on the job are. Everybody should know what a good day looks like. You know, we have different employees on the team and they have different levels of experience and responsibility, but that doesn't negate the fact we need to share with them, regardless of their level of experience, regardless of their level of responsibility on the job, what does a good day, in your opinion, look like for them? Can they go to work knowing what that good day is supposed to be and then produce it consistently over time to produce the best results for you, for the team, for the community? So we need to establish activity standards. A lot of times the basis for that standards is a common job description or position description, sharing with the employee what our minimum expectations of them are on the job. But in reality, it is important. I'll just tell you why. When we survey and interview employees, many of them feel disconnected from the manager. In fact, one of the things they more frequently ask for is frequent and consistent feedback. They don't feel like they're getting enough feedback. Now, I don't know about you. Many years ago, I was actually in a position where I felt disconnected from the boss. I mean, what that really means is I didn't know if the boss thought I was doing a good job or not. And frankly, that's one of the things that employees tell us they're most concerned about today. If you know what that feels like, then you can understand why this is so important. We need to establish and share with each employee our minimum expectations of activity for them on the job every day. As an example, let's think about one area where establishing activity and other standards will be important if we want the employee to develop and produce. For instance, a new hire or someone newly transferred to the team, how should we communicate to them our minimum expectations for their ramp up period on the job? Well, as I've mentioned a couple of times, you may remember, I believe the best results commonly occur by plan. Let me share with you how simple it might be a more effective coach and communicator of your expectations if we just do a little planning. For instance, if I gave you all the time you need and you had all of the resources of your office available, at some point in the reasonable future, could you determine what your minimum expectations for a brand new member of the team are in the areas of conduct, activity, and results? Most managers that I talk to think they can. All the time you need, all the resources of your office available. Plus, if at some point we have those CAR standards in place with our team, those behavioral standards, in addition to the activity standards that might be in their job description or position description, then frankly, they're supposed to be acting like a professional adult starting day one. So what we're really talking about is if you had all of the resources of your office and all the time available, could you come up with your minimum expectation really in the areas activity and results for a new employee in the first 30 days on the job? Well, if you could do that, given the same conditions or parameters, could you possibly come up with what your minimum expectations are for a brand new employee in the areas of conduct, activity, and results at the end of their first 6th month on the job? Well, if you can do that, then we can probably figure out what month 3 is supposed to look like. Now, it's not just half between month 1 and month 6. You have to remember that people don't develop on a straight line. They develop on a curve. And the reason is because the learning curve is attached to the improvement curve. But if you take about 20 or 25% less than what halfway between month 1 and month 6 are, you can get a general sense of what month 3 should probably look like. Well, if we can do 1, 3, and 6, can we kind of guesstimate what months 2, 4, and 5 are supposed to look like? Remember this. If you can come up with this, minimum expectations for a brand new hire or transfer in the first 6 months of their life on the job, think about what position that's going to put you in. You sit down to share with a high quality man or woman what your minimum expectations are, looking out over the landscape of the first 6 months on the job. Think about this. What is a high quality person going to attempt to do? They're going to try to beat it. They're certainly going to know where they need to be in order to stay on plan. It's going to speed up ramp time, developmental time, and improvement time for any new employee on the job. But before I go on, think about this. Do you have any struggling players on the job? Is there somebody who, frankly, it just isn't improving as fast as you'd like them to? Could an idea or a concept like developing a short-term or long-term improvement plan work for those employees, or possibly help them to understand what you're looking for in the next maybe 1 to 6 months? And what about this? You know, a lot of managers tell me that they have on their team somebody, a tenured, a seasoned, solid citizen, hardworking employee, but they know there's another 10 or 15, sometimes 20% improvement that this person has in them, but we just haven't been able to find the key to unlock it. Well, remembering the best results commonly occur by plan. Possibly when the time comes, after we have our newer employees to the team ramped up faster, and after we have either improved or made quicker decisions about those that might be struggling, maybe it will be time at some point to go to those more seasoned, tenured employees and talk to them about what we might do going forward, and maybe work with them to put together their improvement plan over a short or longer time period. So bottom line, if we can produce, if we can come up with, if we can create a plan to help people better understand what our minimum expectations are in the area of conduct, activity, and results, frankly, I think they're going to improve faster. They normally do. Now, let's go back to what we were discussing. Number 2, best practices. Publish a schedule in advance. Working with people on the job is important. We've talked about the reasons why. But I think it's only fair, if you want to get the best result when you're working with people, I think it's only fair that you publish a schedule. Normally, I recommend 30 days in advance to let a lot of people know when you're going to be spending time with them. You know, whether we want to admit it or not, no matter how good you are on your job or how long you've been doing it, you must admit that when the boss is looking over your shoulder or working with you, the dynamics change. It's more difficult. So giving employees a little warning in many cases, letting them prepare to spend time with you, probably is going to produce a better feeling for them and a better outcome overall. So publish a schedule in advance. Let's look at just a simple way you might consider doing that. Let's just say we start with plotting out maybe a 4-week work month. Okay, I got to start thinking about which days am I going to work with people. Well, let's just say I work with this week somebody on Monday and Wednesday, next week Tuesday and Thursday, and so on. Okay, so I know there are other things that I need to do. There's other things as a manager I need to take care of. So I obviously am, in most jobs, not spending every day with my employees on the job, but we're talking about setting aside, carving out, creating some time so that we work with each employee in a frequent enough period, and we focus on their development on the job, their development in their work and on the job. Now, once I figure out which days or half days maybe I'm going to spend with somebody, then I start to assign names to some of those days. Let's just say I'm going to work with Susan one of those days, Jake, Marvin, and Charlene one of those days. I'm going to spend time with them. They know I'm coming. They know I'm going to spend time with them on that day. Of course, the whole team knows there's somebody I'm going to spend time with on these other days, but they don't know who that is. Frankly, this frees up in your schedule or in your plan enough time so that if somebody does need a little extra attention, or maybe we have a new player, a new employee on the job, a new team member, and we frankly need to spend a little more time with them because they're new, you can still free up enough of your time so that you can go work with people as needed and get the benefits of publishing a schedule in advance and having Susan and Jake and Marvin and Charlene prepared and feeling more comfortable with the fact that you're coming to work with them on job on predetermined days that you've already notified them of. So if we are going to tell people that we're going to work with them on the job, especially in advance, I think it's fair to request an agenda 3 days in advance. Now, I'm not talking about a blow-by-blow, minute-by-minute description agenda of what they're going to do that day. What I'm really talking about is, look, you're my employee. You know I'm coming to work with you. I think it's fair to ask, What would you like to do on that day? Because I'm going to be there, that maybe you wouldn't do or you couldn't do if I wasn't there. What specifically would you like me to help you with or coach you on or work with you on, or maybe sometimes do for you and show you how I think it should be done? Request an agenda 3 days in advance. Now, I will tell you initially, if you're not used to asking people for an agenda or publishing a work side-by-side schedule, it may take a little getting used to for them. So you may have to give them some coaching or some instruction. What are you looking for? Agenda, if you don't tell them, somebody's going to send you a spreadsheet. That's not really what I'm talking about or what you should be looking for. So you may have to share with them what your expectations are in this agenda and how to put it together the first couple of times. But people are pretty smart. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Most people pick up pretty quickly on what we're looking for, and they're glad to share it with you. Truth be told, they might even think if they give you an agenda, you're not going to come up with things for them to do. So I think many of them are actually motivated to get you an agenda 3 days in advance. When we get the agenda, then obviously the people we've designated to work with, we will know what we're going to do with them. On the other hand, when we're going to work with people on the job and they don't know who on that day we're going to work with, it might be a good idea, if you have a little proactive notice or thought, it might be a good idea to maybe call them or send them an email the day before and say, listen, I'm planning on coming to work with you tomorrow. Is there anything I should be thinking about preparing for or getting ready to help you with when I get out there? Let's take a look at some of these other best practices. Also, when we work with people on the job, I think it's a good idea early in the morning or early before we get started with them to finalize the objectives, maybe review their agenda, maybe ask some questions about what they hope to accomplish. See if possibly those objectives should change just based on things that have happened in the last few hours or the last few days. So finalize those objectives. I also think that when we're working with people on the job, it's probably a good idea for them to perform a task, and if possible, you to perform a task. I say that because we want to debrief after each task. Maybe they do one and you debrief, and then you do one and have another debrief. Let them share their insights about what you did and how you do it. The truth is, if we are constantly focused on our priority to develop a useful and reliable team, it stands to reason that at some point, with them doing their job every day, some people may actually get better at it than you are. If that's the case and they share some improvement opportunities with you, those are golden nuggets that we can then share or drop on the rest of the team, the other team members, when we go out to work with them. Now, at the end of the day, I recommend that we debrief the day. We're trying to figure out, okay, what did we learn? What could we work on? What have we improved since the last time? And this is where we would share what I call cooperation commitments. As a result, moving forward, what are you going to do that maybe will help them? And what should they do? What do you expect from them? What commitments will they make to help themselves? And then, of course, at the end of the day, we want to determine, is any follow-up or training or support needed? What did we identify that they might need some help with before we move on today? I think if you follow these best practices, frankly, you're going to not only enjoy the time you spend with employees more, but they're going to enjoy it more. Most importantly, they're going to improve faster. And really, that's what we need. The best results commonly occur by plan, but planning will only take you so far. Effective communication, helping people understand your expectations, and then spending time with them, not just to coach and mentor, but also to lead and to develop the kind of relationship that managers should have with their employees. Please consider using these strategies. Thank you for the time you've taken to review and work through this video. Have a great day.